Coming into the organization 2 years ago, I saw excellence across the board, and it's through that excellence we all strengthen each other. I think what makes Stanford exceptional here in the world of nursing is that we're aligned with a medical staff that has preeminence across the world. And when you have that type of excellence, it has an impact and an influence on the practice that we have here at nursing. We bring our own science and we bring our own contributions, but we do it in concert with our medical staff. And together, I think we create just a powerful force in terms of patient care delivery. And that does differentiate us. If you think about it, the work that we do here at Stanford, much is based on evidence and theory, and that's really the foundation in our academic mission within Stanford Healthcare. Our goal with the caring science is to provide a theory, the way of being. The how is the CI care, but it has to be embedded in a framework of theory, and that's what the Gene Watson Caring Science provides for us. Being a Gene Watson Institute has really helped strengthen our work here at Stanford Healthcare because we're interfacing with some of the experts across the country, and with that, we're able to really leverage the learning from one another in a more real way.
Caring science can be viewed as a philosophy as well, and it has given us the opportunity and the permission to really look at our work and be reminded one more time of why we first became nurses or healthcare providers, and two, why we decided to work in this organization. I was hired here at Stanford in 2013 to help the organization integrate caring science. Gene Watson was invited around 2007, 2008 to do presentations around her work, and several departments started to really embed the work after listening to her presentations. And we were very clear that the message that we wanted to share about caring science was in a way that people could bring it back to their units and begin to understand that they were already practicing that way, that it gave us the language and the lens to see our jobs and our work as nurses very differently. One of the action plans that we created was to identify additional staff members around the organization, not only in the inpatient areas, that could also become Caritas coaches so that they could help move the agenda forward and integrate the work.
Often I get asked the question, what's the difference or the synergy between caring science and the Caritas processes? And caring science is the theory associated with the work of Gene Watson and providing the framework in terms of how we work and interact with others. Caritas are the skill sets associated with really living and breathing the caring science. And so it's articulated, giving language to the competencies so that clinicians, physicians, nurses, and others can use that language to build their own practice and create meaning in the way that they work on a day-to-day basis.
For me, when I think about Caritas and caring science, it really means taking care of yourself so that you can be in the position to show that care and love and compassion to others. Because as nurse professionals, I think we often will put our own care needs on the back burner. And if you are not caring for yourself, you can't show up. Right? You don't show up to work in the right frame of mind or in the right space. So when I focus on that practice, I really look at the art and science of being. How am I showing up to my patients, to my colleagues, to the institution?
Caritas is really an exploration of caring. As Gene Watson says, caring is not something that we do, caring is something that we are. So it's taking the concepts of caring beyond the tasks that we do every day. As nurses, it's really easy to focus on, well, I care for my patient because I give them the medication that they need, or I care for my patients because I give them the physical care that they need. It's taking that definition of caring and pushing it even further to, I care for my patients because of the way that I energetically present myself into the room. I'm open and I'm available and I'm supporting them no matter what their expression is.
Nursing has historically really struggled to describe our value and what is the value that we bring to the table. Having this common language and being able to better describe what it means to care for another human being, how the act of caring actually helps create a healing environment in a place where someone can have the ability to start the healing process. Caring science is the what, and then the Caritas is the how. It's the living out of the caring science.
The Caritas coaching program is a 6-month program. The program recommends that you select your project about halfway through once you have a better understanding of the principles. And they recommend that you select something that's going to be meaningful for you. So I selected the project of applying the Caritas principles to leadership because it was a way that I could grow myself and my own leadership style, as well as grow the team that I work with. Using the Caritas process of authentic presence and authentic listening, I changed the way that I conducted the one-on-one meetings with my staff. Previously, one-on-one meetings had been a way for me to run through a bullet point list of things that I felt like I needed to communicate or to discuss with a staff member. Using the Caritas process of authentic presence and authentic listening, I realized I was doing it backward. I changed the way that I did the one-on-one so that it became an open space for the staff member to come and use the time in the way that they wanted to. What this change has allowed the team that I work with to do is to be more open to each other. It's created a really welcoming and open experience where they feel like they can come to me and have discussions without feeling like there's going to be any sort of consequences per se. It's shifted the leadership for the team. It's allowed me to lead from a more collaborative space, to really have a more satisfying leadership role because I can truly connect with the people that I work with.
Possibly, I gotta see how things are going. It's really busy.
My project for the Caritas Coach program is centered around improving resilience for the nurses that are entering into the critical care training program. By improving their resilience, we're hoping to decrease their moral distress, improve their retention, and improve the patient experience. It's a hot topic because we have new nurses entering the critical care training program and new to ICU that are leaving the ICU after a short period of time, within 1 to 2 years, and they cite that moral distress is a big factor in the reason that they're leaving. It's a combination of moral distress and compassion satisfaction. So compassion satisfaction is pretty much how much you enjoy your work and what you're doing for your patients. And moral distress is when you're performing care that is not in line with your own moral and ethical values. And as compassion satisfaction decreases, moral distress increases. So they kind of have an inverse relationship. It affects the skill mix of the nurses that care for our patients, so we lose a lot of the tenured knowledge that comes with having a very tenured ICU nurse to oversee and to mentor the newer staff. It also creates a lot of stress on the leadership team and recruiting and maintaining talent. And it also affects the peer-to-peer relationships in the department because people feel like people aren't there long enough to have a connection, to really connect with one another. It's kind of a two-pronged approach to improving resiliency. We're educating them on the basics around caring science, some of the importance around creating authentic relationships, having authentic presence, and then on the other side of it, we are teaching them self-care practices and micro-practices that help them to perform self-care for themselves so that they're in a place where they can take care of these difficult patients.
My project really was around how do we integrate caring science principles into our formal nursing and patient care services communication strategy, and really be intentional about the kind of language that we're using. And so mine was specifically around biogenic communication, biogenic meaning life-giving communication. I run several of our communication channels, and we have multiple different platforms that we try to communicate with. And so whenever I learned about this word biogenic, life-giving, I really thought, I was like, wow, like I have a tremendous opportunity in my role to be really strategic and intentional about the words that we are using. And so it was really cool to feel like you're able to have that kind of impact on people's day. And especially when I know that these are nurses that have people's lives in their hands every day. So if I can do something to just bring it back for them, or just kind of recenter them, or just kind of give them something, a nugget to think about or to feel good about, I feel like I've done something really good.
Thank you for coming on board. Absolutely. We appreciate it.
As a director, I have a unique opportunity to have several strong leaders under me. And what I've done is I recognize that we tend to not appreciate how difficult the role of a manager is, especially at Stanford now with all the changes. And so one of the things I did was I created a retreat for my leaders, and we focused on resiliency and self-care. They learned a lot of micro practices like pausing before you enter a patient's room. They were able to understand how important it is before you go into a room that you take a deep breath, You reflect on what it is that you're getting ready to do and who you're getting ready to talk to so that you can show up in the right frame of mind. In addition to that, they were really encouraged to do self-care, to get a massage, to step away from the unit, to go walk around the campus if you needed to, just so that you can clear your mind. Because again, if you care for yourself, you have a better ability to show that care and concern for others on your team.
After I became a coach, I had some aha moments about how the concepts in caring science can impact my work. And I identified some very important concepts that I thought would be helpful to our clinical ladder process. As I took on the role of managing our PNDP program, what I found was that a lot of people had anxiety about writing clinical narratives about their own work. What I really noticed is that these levels of reflection are what was missing to understand why we write these clinical narratives. The 3 levels were cognitive, affective, and collective. And what happens in nursing is that you focus on the cognitive without really talking about how that made you feel. How did that impact your work and your role? And taking that concept, I just kind of had this moment of realization that this is what I need to share with the nurses that are going through this process. There's a moment in time where people come to see me so I can help them through the process, and we call them PNDP drop-in lounges. And it was really in a stark room with just a desk and nothing else. And I thought, how can I make this a little more inviting? Looking at Caritas process number 8, which talks about creating a healing learning environment. And so I basically transformed that room, dimmed the lighting, put some jazz music on, created a centering table, and made it just a little more inviting. And as people came in, they made comments. Oh my God, I love the music. Thank you, it looks so inviting. I think that was a great way for me to start integrating some of the caring science concepts into the work that I do here.
So this is my deck card initially, where I had different micro practices.
One of my programs was building resilience and infusing micro practices across staff. And I'm very passionate about staff satisfaction. Micro practices is those small practices which you infuse throughout the day, at work, outside work, which helps you recharge and be resilient and compassionate. We go through a lot of stresses and we have a lot of demands and we do a lot of multitasking. So it's very important for us to be composed, compassionate, and be aware and mindful. The micro practices does help us, ground us, and center us so we can give the best to our patients. It is unique actually because we all have our own touch. You can do it anywhere, anytime. So I believe in having that toolbox and having that awareness and exposure and that access to all these practices which builds up our resilience. It helps you unburden yourself.
Focus on a memory, a moment, a thought of gratitude. Set an intention for yourself for self-compassion, to be present with each person that you interact with today.
So main takeaway is you cannot pour out of an empty cup, and you have to find your own practices. You have to develop your own toolkit which re-energizes you. Everything might not work for you, so you have to find time and practices where it recharges you, you can connect with yourself, and then you can create that healing space for yourself and for all others who you work with.
I think sometimes in an academic medical facility, we can be so focused on the innovations and the best practice and doing the best practices for care that you can lose sight of the human being in the middle. And I think caring science and the Caritas factors help us to keep the human being at the center of what we're doing. And when we talk about best practice, like how better to take care of a patient than with loving kindness.
I think most nurses that you interact with here at Stanford are very proud to be a nurse, but I think they're also really proud to be a Stanford nurse. I think whenever you feel like you can be a part of change and you can be a part of driving that change, those are game changers for your engagement. And so I think for us to have the ability to actually really own our practice, that's a big deal. And not all organizations are like that.
When I think of what the impact of implementing caring science is over time to our culture, we really are working to create meaning in the work that people do, to help them connect with people. Because when you think about it, people come into the profession in general because they want to provide service to others. And then over time, sometimes that can get eroded, or there could be a veneer that's put in between those relationships. Caring science helps us in the Caritas processes strip that away, so people can be authentic and create meaning in the way that they work on a day-to-day basis. And I think you would agree that when people find meaning and they're aligned with their vision and their mission on a personal basis, that creates a tremendous synergy of gratification and satisfaction that can never be taken away.